With third base still unsettled, the Brewers pack enough punch on that infield. We know the defense is good, but we're about a week and a half away from spring training. What is up for that infield? We'll get to that next here on Locked On Brewers.
You are Locked On Brewers, your daily Milwaukee Brewers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
The Brewers infield, minus Willy Adames, looks largely intact going into this upcoming season with the big hole over at third base, which we talked about a lot. We're going to get to that coming up here in a little bit. Chuck Freeman, Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Good to have you along. Yes, we are about a week and a half away from pitchers and catchers reporting and the start of a new season. Turning on the radio or on the TV and seeing that first spring training game or hearing that first spring training game, that is a beautiful, beautiful thing. It's been a long winter. It's been an uneventful winter, to say the least. The Brewers losing a couple of key players, and that was early. But let's face it, nothing has happened much at all with the Milwaukee Brewers in the last month or so. It's been very quiet. So we're going to take an opportunity as we're going into the season here to look at the different positions, infield, outfield, pitchers, starting pitchers, bullpen. We're going to get to all that coming up here in the next few days. We're going to talk about the infield, first of all. Now, I know some people are down on Rhys Hoskins, but a year ago, we all loved the move. The Brewers signed him 2-year deal, $32 million, and we were all on board thinking that, okay, if Rhys Hoskins has a big year, that'll be good for the Milwaukee Brewers, and it'll probably be good for Rhys because Rhys will be gone. He'll get a multi-year contract somewhere else. You know how it goes. The Brewers just can't keep good things. We can't have good things with the Milwaukee Brewers. Not for long anyway. So Rhys Hoskins did not have a very good year last year. He batted .214, 26 homers, 82 RBIs. Not good enough. After the final game of the year, all us media members, we gathered around him to talk to him about what he thought he was going to do in the offseason, if he was going to be back with the Milwaukee Brewers. And he talked about how much he loved the team chemistry and how great it was coming to the Milwaukee Brewers. And I get that. And a lot of players say that. That is status quo for the Milwaukee Brewers through the years, how much they love playing here. Great crowds, good chemistry, terrific organization. You'd like to see them spend a little bit more money. But Rhys Hoskins said he loved it here. Okay. Now, what he didn't say was, well, I have no other options. I can't go anywhere else. Who else is going to take me? I batted 214 with 26 home runs, and I wasn't going to get many bites out there. Wasn't get a multi-year deal. So what was he going to do? Turn down $18 million? So he's coming back on $18 million, and hopefully Rhys is going to do what we thought he did last year. Now he's a year more healthy with that knee, and we hope that it turns into a 35 home run season and, get the batting average up a little bit, up a little bit. And the RBIs, let's turn the 82 into 106. RBI totals, not bad for a guy hitting a bat at .214 and missed some time because of the knee or the hamstring, as it was related to the knee. But still, when he took the buyout for $18 million, I think a lot of Brewers fans groan. It's like, oh boy. No, I think Rhys is better. I think he's better than 214, 26 home runs, and he's going to have to be more productive than he was last year because of the gaping hole that is there without Willy Adames and his 31, 32 home runs that he had last year. So Rhys Hoskins is going to have to step it up if this team is going to maintain its stronghold on the NL Central. So with Rhys Hoskins, he is going to be our starting first baseman. Jake Bauers back on a minor league deal. Hit the big home run in the postseason, but let's face it. What does Rhys bring to the Brewers? Left-handed production. When he does produce, strikes out a heck of a lot. We'll see if he makes the team. Also, we'll see if the Brewers find themselves a better option down the road here as a left-handed option off the bench. Remember, Bauers is only here on a minor league deal. There's not any commitments to him whatsoever. So wouldn't be surprised if the Brewers bring somebody in who is unsigned, maybe a non-roster invitee, some veteran looking for a job to back up Rhys Hoskins, a left-handed stick. We'll see. Tyler Black is listed on the depth chart. Nothing. No, I'm not sold on Tyler Black. I know some of you guys are. I'm just not at this point, and not an option for me. He was in the heart of the order for a little bit in September last year, which I really didn't understand. He was batting fifth for a few games. I'm like, why are we doing that? So anyway, second base. Well, the Gold Glover, Bryce Turang. I really did think he took a step up this past year. The question with Bryce Turang is not his defense, which is Gold Glove, but is there more there? Is there more than 254 and 7 home runs? I'm in love with the 50 stolen bases, and I'm love it with the high stolen base percentage there. The 7 home runs, that's fine. Okay, 254. Well, this isn't 1984 for second baseman. You love to see that batting average come up. Like I said, the question is for Turang, is there more there for him at second base? Is there more of an upside? And I still think there is. He was baseball's leader in defensive WAR above replacement. I'm not a huge analytic guy, okay? Some guys live all day on the analytics stuff, and they throw all those analytic numbers, amazing analytic numbers, and your head wants to explode. I'll live with a few of them. I'm not going to sit here all day and evaluate a guy on analytics. To me, I look at the guy's production. I give him the old Freeman eye test, which seems to work. That seems to go a long ways. So the Freeman eye test says Bryce Turang, yeah, the defensive WAR as a bubble replacement is great, but Turang, Gold Glove second baseman, and I think he is going to get better offensively as well. And of course, we love the 50 stolen bases. Top of the order, you love to see him step it up a little bit more offensively. Joey Ortiz. We all think he's going to move from third to short, which is fine. Now, when you hear Brewers fans talk about Joey Ortiz, you would think that the guy batted 276, batted 26 home runs, slugged up 90, 100 RBIs last year. When fans talk about Ortiz, and I know it's young, still young in his game, obviously, coming off his season last year, 103 strikeouts in 440 at-bats. That's a high strikeout rate. Now, again, cutting him some slack because we believe that there's more for him as well. But the 11 home runs and the 239 batting average need an uptick there. Like Turang, Ortiz is also darn good with the glove. Wasn't a Gold Glover, but he can play Gold Glove type defense. So up the middle right now, second at short defensively, you gotta love it defensively with these two, Turang and Ortiz. And I'm assuming Turang is playing shortstop. I mean, there's been rumblings about. I assume that Ortiz is playing shortstop. There's been some rumblings about Turang moving over, but I don't think you move a Gold Glove second baseman out of second base. Now Ortiz, that's a strong up the middle defensively. They are really, really good. And they're going to be one of the best defensive teams in baseball again. Just need to see an uptick in the 11 home runs and 239. Remember, he started off when he got regular playing time last year. He wasn't a regular to start off. Oliver Dunn was playing third base. But as the season, he got in there in May and started to produce a little bit. But still, and the 11 stolen bases. Maybe there's more there too. With Adames gone at shortstop, Ortiz is the shortstop going forward. At least, unless the Brewers surprise us and get a shortstop here in the next couple of weeks on a trade. And after that NBA trade this weekend with Doncic, who knows? Never count on anything anymore, should you? But the third base spot right now, if you look at the Brewers depth chart on Brewers.com, they still got Ortiz. They got Ortiz, the starting shortstop and the starting third baseman. They have him as the number one third baseman. Weird for a team that's the defending National League champs and has owned this division for a couple of years at least, that he'd be listed as both. That just shows you when he's listed as a starting third baseman, the Brewers really don't have a third baseman right now. Or do they list him as a starting third baseman as well? Because they quite haven't figured out if he's going to move to shortstop yet. Here with, possibly a move being made before spring training or during spring training. So for now, and Sal Frelick is listed on the depth chart, and I'm going to say Sal Frelick is my starting third baseman on opening day. Yeah, he's a Gold Glove outfielder. Now, the problem here with Sal Frelick is, and I want to see him in an everyday lineup. I think Sal should be in the everyday lineup. Now, these numbers got to improve because he's a Gold Glove outfielder. He's going to give you a great, like Turang, nothing's getting by Frelick. He's going to make some amazing catches. He's going to gun guys out on the base pass, and Sal Frelick is going to be great. Now, this is what concerns me. 2 homers and 259. Is there an upside in the 24-year-old Frelick offensively? Because outfield, yeah, the Gold Glove is going to get you places, but is the 259, 2 home runs, is that going to keep you in the everyday lineup or not for the Brewers? That's my big question mark. And the 32 RBIs, that's not good enough. You got close to 500 at bats. So he got a lot of playing time, not a lot of home runs. He did hit that home run in the postseason, which obviously is not one of his 2 home runs. That doesn't, obviously, as you know, doesn't count toward his regular season numbers. But 259, but still, with that said, offensively, I'm looking for Frelick, who's in his second full season after getting called up the previous year. I'm looking for better numbers out of him, Sal Frelick. The other options at third base right now, Oliver Dunn, Monasterio, Vinny Capra, and Caleb Durbin. Not liking those right now. Durbin hasn't played an inning in Major League Baseball. The other guys, utility at best. Andrew Monasterio is my utility guy who can play every position for you, including first base if he has to. And he's going to come. He's the kind of guy, Monasterio, you could sit him on the bench for 10 days and still come up in a clutch spot, and he could wrap a double into the gap. So he's kind of a pro on this team. Not that these guys, the other guys aren't, but Monasterio, not a guy who's going to complain, a guy who's not going to complain about not playing, a guy who's going to go out there when you need someone at second, short, or third, and he's going to be able to fill in for injuries and give you quality at-bats. Not to a tune where I want him to play every day, though. Andrew Monasterio, I said this from very beginning, even when he's playing every day in 2022, he is a utility guy. All right, we come back, we'll talk about the catcher's spot. We'll talk about the deal that Contreras got, and also just how many days. I found this on the internet on Reviewing the Brew, in fact, a terrific website about just how many days and how much the Brewers have owned the division since 2020. We'll get to that coming up next. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Locked On Brewers brought to you in part by FanDuel. What a great sponsor FanDuel is. FanDuel, well, Super Bowl 58 is here, and you want props. They got all the props on FanDuel. 1 game, 2 teams, endless possibilities with all those props. There's no better way to make every play more exciting than with the FanDuel Sportsbook. Go on there, and you're going to see everything from predicting the first touchdown, the MVP, the coin flip. FanDuel makes it easy to get on all the action. There's some really good props out there, too. If you can find the right prop, and you can get a pop out of it. There's no doubt about it. Live betting all game long with the Super Bowl. You can adjust your bets. Maybe, hey, you want to bet yourself out of a play. I wouldn't suggest you do that. But maybe the Chiefs get down early and you want to chase the Chiefs. I've done that before in the regular season, and you can do that on FanDuel. Their live betting feature is so good. And plus, if you place a $5 bet, you could potentially win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl. That's icing on the cake. So download the app, head to FanDuel.com, get started, bet $5. And if you win that $5 bet, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, the official partner of Super Bowl 59. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. By the way, our podcast, you get it at Google, Spotify, Apple, wherever you download your podcast. We are there. We're on all the audio platforms. We're the #1 Brewers podcast on the internet because you great Brewer fans out there. And, of course, our growing YouTube page. Search Locked On Brewers on YouTube. Hit the subscribe button, hit the bell, and you'll come right into our Locked On Brewers studio, and you'll see the background our studio that we've constructed over the years. It's beautiful. I love being in here. And yeah, all the memorabilia you got sitting up. I'm very proud of being a lifelong fan of the Milwaukee Brewers ever since I was a kid. I grew up in Milwaukee, and my favorite team in the state of Wisconsin. Not that I dislike the Packers or the Bucks or like them barely, but the Brewers have always been my team and going to games since since George Scott played with the team in the 70s. How would I say that? All right, William Contreras. First of all, William Contreras is a starting catcher. He's the best catcher in baseball. It's been talked about many times. Batted .281, 23 home runs, 92 RBIs, and he really put them on the map to start the season last year. I thought Contreras, who got off to that great start at the plate, many clutch hits, Contreras, and the average came down. He wouldn't get about 320 or 330 like he was in April and May. But it came down, .281, 23 home runs, 92 RBIs. A guy who, when he didn't catch, he played DH. He kept his bat in the lineup. He played, 156 games? That's amazing for a guy who was catching. Again, not catching. He was the DH. Contreras, MVP of this team. Clutch, clutch, clutch. When the Brewers got off to that fast start, largely because of William Contreras, a guy you can really count on, Mr. Dependable. Now, one thing I do like about Contreras, and I'll talk about this in a little bit, about the fact that the Brewers got him for a nice salary. They got him under control, but we'll talk about that interesting move the Brewers made with the salary coming up here in a little bit. Backup right now is Haas. Quero, I should say, is coming off the injury. He's really we got to see what he can do on the major league level, but you won't find out if Contreras is going to play every day. And right now, Haas is the backup. We'll see how healthy and Carroll, if he's ready to go, but he's not replacing, obviously, the MVP in every which way. Contreras, who not only is good for the team, but he's also good for the bottom line, considering he's under contract and he's under team control for the next several years. I think the Brewers could still go out and get themselves a backup catcher. I'm not so certain that they're completely 100% in on Eric Haas as their backup. Guy who's going to clutch hit 2 home runs in the game last year. Guy who's not going to throw anybody on the base paths whatsoever. So that hurts you because they just ran all day on him last year. But Haas is going to be right now the backup. And if we're going to the season with Haas as a backup, I'm okay with that. But I still think there's something that's going to happen this year, here in the next couple of weeks. I think they might go out and get themselves a backup. Remember, they got Haas last year, and then they went out and made another move for a catcher. So that's the way the infield stands right now. They're dropping some pop without Adames. Third base is a question mark. But at first base, I think Hoskins has a bounce back. Turang, Gold Glove second baseman. Like to see him pick those offensive numbers up a little bit. And we'll see what Ortiz does in his next year here. And I think those numbers will come up too. The 11 home runs and 239. Third base, as we've been talking about all winter long, a huge question mark. So where are the Brewers right now? And how much have they dominated this division? We'll get to that coming up next here on Locked On Brewers. Locked On Brewers, part of Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Follow me on Twitter as well, Chuck Freeman, FREIMUND. Thanks for making us your first listen to every day. Found this out on Reviewing the Brew. They went into detail about this, and I saw they picked this off on a Twitter site. I can't remember where, but Reviewing the Brew kind of expounded on it a little bit. The past 4 seasons, the Brewers have spent 468 days in first place. 468 days in first place. The only other team in the last 4 seasons to dominate their division and stay in first place that long has been the LA Dodgers. Okay, that's some pretty good company. Although since the expanded playoffs of 2022, no team has made it past the wild card. No division champ has made it past the wild card. And the Brewers are one of those teams that are guilty of that right there. 6 teams from each league make the playoffs. Hard to believe, 1982, last time the Brewers went to the World Series, only 2 teams made the postseason from each league. American League East, American League West, and the Brewers were in the East at the time. National League East, National League West. So we've gone from 4 teams making the postseason in all of baseball to 12. And I think that's a good thing. I just wish that was around in the late 70s when the Brewers had teams that were averaging 90 wins a year. But that's a pretty good company. Past 4 seasons, 468 days in first place. Now what the Brewers need to do is get by that wild card round. And they do it with a guy like Contreras. They agreed before it went to arbitration on the $6 million. They kind of went in between there, what the Brewers were offering and what Contreras wanted. Contreras wanted right around 6.5, and the Brewers were like 5.6. So they kind of met in the middle. And they've also put in there a club option for $12 million for next year, which I like, because if he does have an explosive season, that $12 million could be worse if he has an injury-plagued season. If he has an injury-plagued season, then the Brewers can opt out of that deal for like $100,000. So this works for Contreras, and it also works for the Milwaukee Brewers. It works for Contreras because if he has a good year next year, he's guaranteed $12 million because the Brewers will pick up that option. If it doesn't work out if he has a bad year or if he's injured, well, the Brewers would opt out on that deal, and here we go again. But I thought that was interesting when the Brewers put that in there. A crafty way to get the $12 million option. And, of course, he's under contract with the Brewers for the foreseeable future here. And we love to think that he's going to stay here for a long time. But as I said at the top of this podcast, as we know, the Brewers can't have good things. Moncada. Baseball, the Bleacher Report in their baseball section, they were reporting that the Brewers have some interest in Moncada, and he would be the likely option. Now, when he signed his extension with the White Sox a few years ago, that 5-year, like $70 million extension, I believe it was wasted money because Moncada was injured. He was terrible. We talked about Moncada in a couple of episodes. Bleacher Report seems to believe that you can sign Moncada for 1 year, $1 million. And nobody has done that yet. Nobody has done, and I don't think anybody has done that yet because Moncada is there for the taking. And maybe that some of these teams like the Milwaukee Brewers are trying to still make a deal for a third baseman. But Moncada, 1 year, $1 million, 29 years old. As I said a couple of podcasts ago, the Brewers should take a flyer on that. Okay. 1 year, $1 million. That's nothing. 1 year, $1 million. Now, this is at 1978, where $1 million was a lot of money in pro sports. That's nothing. So the good news is he's still available. Now you bring him in 1 year, $1 million. You hope he stays healthy. But I still think when I'm going through all the infielders out there, Sal Frelick is my third baseman for now. But bringing in Moncada on 1 year, $1 million, not a bad option, unless there's something better out there right now. Just before coming on the air, sad news, Rich Dauer, who was the infield coach on those Ned Yost Brewers teams 15 years ago, well, more than that, 16, 20 years ago. God, that time flies. Rich Dauer was the infield coach. He was really good with Ricky Weeks, J.J. Hardy, helping to develop them defensively. Rich Dauer was a huge part of that infield coach. He passed away. Played his ball in the 70s with the Orioles, infielder, second baseman, Rich Dauer. He's in the Orioles Hall of Fame, I think, too. Just a steady ball player. But more importantly, the Milwaukee Brewers, he did a nice job. Always a good guy to interview and talk infield with around the batting cage before games and all that, interviewing him. I had him on a couple of my pregame shows, Rich Dauer. So sorry to see that he had passed away, former infield coach with the Milwaukee Brewers. All right, there we go. Coming up Wednesday here on the show, we'll get to the outfield, that crowded, intriguing outfield spot. with Sal Frelick again. I was talking about Sal. If he's not going to be the everyday third baseman, he's going to play some outfield. It's hard to remove a guy who's a Gold Glover in the outfield and put him at a different position, but might be because of need and because the Brewers have a few more bodies out there out in the outfield. But that's something we're going to get to on Wednesday. This is Chuck Freeman. Again, you get it on Google, Spotify, Apple, wherever you download your podcast. We're on there. We're on all the platforms. And you great Brewer fans making us the #1 Brewers podcast on the internet. And of course, hey, if you listen to our audio downloads, please go to our YouTube page. Become a subscriber. It's all free. Go to Locked On Brewers on YouTube. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the bell. Please help us out. Become a member. It's all free. And man, I can feel the excitement inside me now as we're pointing towards spring training a week from Wednesday. Chuck Freeman, Locked On Brewers, part of Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. For your second listen to every day, go to my guy Sully on Locked On MLB. Got a little hot stove league as he's getting ready for spring training as well. Have a great day, everybody. This is Chuck Freeman on Locked On Brewers.